Hey y'all, I had a chance to sit down with Pat Wylie and Nick McGarry, a couple of really cool guys with some special forces background who are really doing some really cool things with the new businesses. Sit down and listen to these cool stories that they told us about life out there. Okay, boys. So it's October 1st, ain't it?
All right.
Not yet.
Almost.
Oh,
Almost.
man.
29th.
Sitting
say,
on
I got stuff
September
due today.
29. September 29, and we are in North Carolina. We're right outside of Fort Bragg, and we're sitting with a couple of cool guests with us. I'm going to do my intro first. I am Eddie Molina. I am the Southeast Regional Manager of the Alert Program. So you guys don't know this because you haven't, you're not intimate with our program. But I've got this thing going, and I screw my intro up all the time. So I'm the Southeast Regional Manager, and when I came on the program, I'm goofy enough to tell people I'm the Southeast Regional Command Master, and I can't freaking stop saying that. So now whenever I do this intro for the podcast, I let that slip out. I say I'm the Southeast Regional Commander. I just can't stop it. I don't know. My stupidity knows no bounds. But anyway, so I'm the Southeast Regional Manager for the Alert Program. The Alert Program is a grant-funded, data-driven training program. We train first responders across the country. We've had a lot of good fortune to train a lot of cool people. And today we're sitting here in North Carolina talking to a couple of really cool people. I'll let you guys do a quick intro on yourselves, and we'll kind of kick into this.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Have at it.
All right. Good morning. Pat Wylie, the owner and founder of Green Hat Solutions. I'm a retired Green Beret. I spent all 20 years here at Fort Bragg, which is kind of a rarity for most. Originally from Spokane, Washington. So just happy to be here. So thanks, Eddie.
Thanks, Pat.
My name is Nick McGarry. I'm the VP of Marketing for True Velocity Ammunition. I, too, am a former Green Beret. Pat and I actually went to the Q course together. It's in the same company together as well. Spent all my time at Fort Bragg and ended up liking this area and stayed here.
That's awesome. It's a beautiful state. I do like it. I don't know enough about it, so I can't really talk on it. But man, what I've seen while I've driven around in here, it's been pretty cool. So I know y'all have a great history of service, and I want to get there, but I kind of want to just kind of introduce who y'all are and what y'all have done in your past. I think that there's a lot of crossover between our communities. I'm 25 years retired law enforcement, and I had a lot of cool jobs along the way. I got to do a lot of special operations stuff, SWAT stuff, and I got to end my career doing some short-term undercover stuff. Covert operations, been a lot of fun. So I see a lot of crossover, and I see a lot of similarities between the two communities and the military guys and the first responder guys and the whole process thing of what we go through. So I'd like to kind of introduce who you guys really are. So background, man, where did y'all come from? What was your sport of choice? Nick?
Let's see. I moved around a little bit just because of my dad's work. So I was born in Mississippi, lived in Indiana for a little bit, and then grew up in West Virginia. I went to West Virginia University. Sport of choice was actually bike racing, and I was avid musician before.
Motor or pedal?
Pedal.
Oh,
Mountain
really?
biking, BMX, everything else. So that was really my sport of choice. I still like racing of all sorts, mainly F1 or something like that.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. A lot of cool trails in those areas that you were talking about.
Oh yeah, West Virginia's fantastic when it comes to anything outdoors. Being in the mountains.
So how much does your current bike cost?
My current bike costs nothing because I sold my last one. So,
Nice.
but I'm debating on going back to mountain biking or sticking with road biking. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man, there's a lot of cool highways out here.
Yeah, it's actually really excellent road biking.
All right, cool. I think the last bike that I rode for an extended period, I was into triathlons for a little while, and it was a weird experience. I had bought an old TTX when they switched over their triathlon bikes, their aero bikes. I bought that bike right when they switched over to the new model of the Speed Concept, and UPS crushed my bike.
Oh.
So they bought me a brand new bike. They said, "Man, we did this, so we're going to call the Trek people, and we're having a new frame sent out to you." So I got a brand new frame the first year they started building that one. It just worked out perfect for me.
Awesome.
Oh yeah, it worked out great. Pat, how about you? Where are you from?
Washington State, so from Spokane originally, so not the Seattle. I'm from the other side of Washington,
All right.
the non-crazy part. So yeah, my sport of choice. Well, like Nick, I grew up as a military brat. My dad was in the Air Force and the Navy before that. So sport of choice was track and baseball. Once I got out of that, did a lot of mountain biking as well. Just being up there in the Cascade Mountains allowed me to do a lot of mountain biking. But team sports wasn't really a team sport guy.
I got you. What was your event in the track?
Sprinting. So I did the 100 and 200.
Wow.
Fast kid.
That's impressive. Yeah, my son used to do the 100 and 200, and it's just ridiculous. I don't know where he got the speed from, but it wasn't from me, you know. But that's cool. Those are hard events.
Yeah.
The 200 just freaks me out. I don't get how you have that much power for that long of a time.
Yeah, it's a lot of endurance.
It's a big burst.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So mountain biking as well. So high school? Tell me about high school. What was high school like?
Oh, high school. High school was I hated school.
Yeah.
To be honest, I hated going to. I was in the public education system. Didn't do well. Partied a lot. More interested in girls and recreational activities than anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my high school experience.
Awesome.
So
That sounds familiar. Sounds like me. You know, I hated classes. I hated going to class, or hated doing homework rather. But I love the social aspect of it.
Mhm.
I was at high school all the time, so I'd show up at least for the morning. Senior year, Mom, if you're watching, sorry. But senior year, man, I'd show up for the morning, and everything else was social, you know. But pretty much the same. What about you, man?
Yeah, for high school, I mean, it's public education, so you weren't really pushed. But with our school, it seemed like if you wanted to be in the winning team, it was the band. And our band, symphonic band, the marching band, everything else, we won. State, regional, everything constantly. So if you wanted to do something and travel and win, you were in the band. We had probably 150 kids in the band. The soccer team was pretty good, but the football team was less than desirable, mainly because of the coach. So
Lackluster, I got
So the football coach would always be like, Nick, why aren't you playing football? I'd be like, because I like to win.
What was your instrument?
French horn, mellophone, trumpet, bass, guitar.
Sweet, man. Do you still play?
I still play bass, yeah.
Badass, man. That's great. I don't know if I can say that on here, but anyways, we'll find out. Man, that's pretty cool. I like hearing those stories. So I was teaching a class in Lincoln, Nebraska, and so we talk about sports, and we all kind of come from the same basic mindset, same basic backgrounds. And the host of the class, we're talking about what's going on. He's born and raised there in the Lincoln area. It's like, man, everybody wants to be a Cornhusker football player, right? So did you play football growing up? So yeah, I played football, high school football as wide receiver and D-back. Lean guy, average size, probably 5'10", 5'11", lean, muscular guy. And he was a cop there on campus. Said, you didn't want to play here? I said, well, yeah, of course I wanted to play, but I wasn't big enough, wasn't strong enough. So, well, what did you do? Did you go to school here? Said, yeah, I went to school here. It's like, all right, cool. So what did you do? I said, don't tell me you were a cheerleader. He said he was a cheerleader for 4 years. I didn't realize he got full scholarships on both sides. That's great, man. So
oh, wow.
4-year scholarship for being a cheerleader. I said, so you were a 4-year scholarship guy, and you hung out with those cheerleaders for 4 years. He's like, yeah, I married one of them. I was like, wow, that is a cool story. I was impressed, man. That's exactly what I was thinking he was going to say, and sure enough. So that was kind of a cool story, man. Just take opportunities where they come. So how long did y'all know y'all wanted to be in the military?
Oh, I think it was destiny for me.
Yeah.
It's my family has long lineage of military history and service, so a lot of it was to get away from home. Just home wasn't doing it for me, so it was just get away from the house. So I joined the Army. I had a lot of experience cooking, so coincidentally enough, I joined the Army as a cook.
No kidding.
And then I did that for about 7.5 years before I figured out there was something more to it. And that's also coincidentally when 9/11 happened. So I wanted to do something a little bit more with my life. So I decided to seek out to go to the Special Forces qualification course and went through it. Shortly after, that's when Nick and I met each other, and everything changed from there. Spent the rest of my career as a Green Beret.
That's interesting, man. That's a long time in that career field to switch over to. That's like almost complete opposite, going from being a cook to being
It gave me a
special
good
forces.
cover, so I could say I was a cook and actually do good cooking.
Just
So
like Casey Ryback.
there you go.
Yeah,
You said
love
it.
that guy, man. I have to talk about him in almost every podcast. But man, that's pretty cool. So how old were you when you switched over?
Wow, I think I was probably around mid-20s, 25, 26 years old,
Okay.
something like that.
Okay, not
So I
too far
joined
down.
right out of high school, so I was
Gotcha.
18 when I joined.
All right, so your body was still pretty resilient at the time.
Yes.
That's
Oh, yeah.
good. Cool. What about you?
So again, my whole family was, long time military. I think all the way back to I think the Civil War, maybe. I'm not really actually the Revolutionary War on one side.
Wow.
But my grandfather, he was in World War II, served during Korea, and then 2 tours in Vietnam. Was shot down twice. He was a pilot, and then my dad was also a pilot who was in Vietnam. He's a Navy pilot. Brother was military, uncles, pretty much everybody. I was on the fence on joining the military or not, just because I had a pretty good music career during college, and then 9/11 happened, and everything.
What kind of
completely
music
changed.
did y'all play?
I played everything from heavy metal to funk to even played bass in some R&B, or not R&B, but rap bands, just because they needed a bass player. And I had a good time, but then 9/11 happened and everything changed. It's a different focus. I specifically remember what happened, and I went, we're at war. And shortly after that, I graduated college and enlisted in the Army and volunteered for Special Forces.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's a great story. Everybody has a really cool 9/11 story. Man, it seems to be like a great turning page. So I know that growing up, so I have stories so my grandmother died a couple of years ago. She was 97 years old, and I would ask her, like, tell me about what you remember. And she had stories from the Great Depression. She was a kid in the Great Depression. She remembers that time period. So it's like our kids, like we were young adults, right, going through the 9/11 thing. And our kids and our grandkids and their grandkids are going to know 9/11. It's like this stuff that Grandpa lived through, and that changed their life. They actually went into battle because of what changed for us. They're all great stories. I've had the chance to teach in the New York area. And when you get a chance to sit down and you ask everybody, like, give me your 9/11 story, and there's guys from NYPD and the Port Authority and those guys, they're telling the stories. So, man, I've never seen such. They were talking about how the windows on all the areas surrounding all the buildings surrounding, with all the windows were blown out.
Mm-hmm.
And they said for several days after, you could walk down the streets when you're on your way to the pile to go help, and you could just see first responders and volunteers just racked out in all the buildings, all the lobbies of all the buildings. People were just racked out. We just did what we could, and we slept where there was room. Just wild. It was
Yeah.
It was a battle zone, and that goes right in the middle of our country.
It's also when you see the best of humanity too.
Yeah.
Yeah. People rise to it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, so Q course. Yeah, y'all got to go to Q course together, and man, I want to hear it. It's like, tell me about it. So, yeah, tell me what you remember about Q course. What stands out?
Well, for me, it was a very big transition to go from cook to Special Forces. So it was the hardest thing I ever did in my military career when I went. So it was had a lot of training to do on my own. If you know anything about cooks in the Army, is one of the worst jobs as far as schedules is concerned. So training up for it was it was fun. It was something I got to do alone, but again, I thrive on being alone and training on my own, just being in my own head. It worked out for me. So selection was a good time. I like the idea of putting something heavy on your back and letting you think for yourself, and because it's all about just not quitting. And it sounds easy to not quit, but once you have no guidance, no feedback, because that's what Special Forces selection is all about, is information deprivation. Because they starve you for what's coming next, you don't know, and you have no feedback on how you're doing. They just say, "Hey, go that way. Continue to go until we tell you to stop." It's really it messes with your mind, and it's great. I thrived on it. So.
Wow, that's an interesting way to describe it. I have never heard it called information deprivation. That's pretty interesting. I'm gonna chew on that one for a while. I'm gonna use that one because that's a big thing, and I never really thought about the training that way. But yeah, that's exactly what it was. I've heard Q course described by other Green Berets or other former Green Berets, but I've never really heard that context put to it. But yeah, that once somebody deprives you of information, I don't know if it's day outside or night outside. I don't know what day it is. I don't know when the next meal's coming. Yeah, that's pretty much all. Pretty much included.
It wasn't a meal thing. It was
It
just
wasn't a meal thing.
you had no feedback on how you're doing.
Yeah. Like you wouldn't know if you're late. You wouldn't know if you made it to the right point. I mean, it was just, here's your point, plot it out, go.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then you start taking off. You know, basically, puncture your little card and look at the next point and head out. I mean, it was interesting.
What were the instructors like during that phase or
It's
during
very
that time?
quiet.
Really?
very quiet, very professional.
It'd be like, watch the board.
Yeah, yeah.
And you go and you check the board every 15 minutes. If something changes, then you go get everybody. It's time to head out. They didn't yell at you. They didn't. It was kind of a gentleman's course. I mean, literally, they're like, all right, that's what you got to do.
Yep.
Go do this.
There's only like 1 or 2 days out of what total 26 that they yelled at you.
I don't even remember them yelling. I remember
Log PT, rifle PT. That's the only
log
time
PT. Yeah.
they did yell.
I don't know if they were yelling or if it was just my mind wanting to explode and everything was, because that was not fun.
That was fun.
Especially if you're slightly taller than anybody else.
Yeah, true.
Wow. 26 days and there's really no feedback. That's pretty. That is pretty intense.
Well, you also thrive. I think I thrive when I see people quit.
Yeah.
Because it's like, wow, okay, that's it, and he quit. I can keep doing this for at least a few more days. And then you just see people just dropping like flies, and especially during the cold. Because I don't know when you went through selection, Nick. I went through selection in December.
I went through in what was it? May.
Yeah, and it was super cold.
So what's the difference? So it kind of explains. So the people watching don't really understand the difference. I know I don't really understand the difference. I know I've heard Q course. I've heard the selection. So what's like the big difference in them? When do they happen in your all's process?
So you have selection in order to get into the Q course. So you have to go through Special Forces assessment and selection, where literally you go through, they don't tell you anything. This is what we're talking about now. And if you pass, then you get, orders to go through the Q course. And then there's multiple other phases. Now this has changed many times, but when we went through, there was 6 phases. So you had phase 1, which is selection. You had phase 2, which is small unit tactics. Then it was your MOS, your military occupation and specialty. Then it was Robin Sage, which is kind of a culmination exercise. Then we went into language and survival school, or SEER school. And you had to pass all of them. It was a marathon. I mean, during this whole thing, you might know how you're doing in some of the other ones, but at the same time, it was just a long time. And say, for instance, I took Arabic, which was 6 months of just language immersion. And, I mean, you go from being physical, mental to strictly just mental, and you're having to learn something completely new, depending on what language that you get.
Yeah, it's constant back and forth.
Yeah.
And you're constantly being assessed all the time.
Yep.
And you have to get through all of that before you ever qualify for the Q course.
No, that is the Q course.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
the
the
Q course.
You got to go through all of that before you get your Green Beret and your Special Forces tab.
Okay, cool.
And then you get assigned to a group.
And I think going through the whole process, it took me, and I got through everything the first time, it took me 2 years to get through from being a cook until I donned the Green Beret and Special Forces tab. It took a total of 2 years of nothing but school.
Yep.
So it's not an online course. I got you.
Yeah, can't clap it.
I can't just do that. Okay, cool. I've had kids. My son is actually in college and going the ROTC route. And I know that's one of the avenues that he wants to pursue. And I put him in touch with some of our friends. It's like, hey, you figure it out. Like, you go do it. It's like if you want these things, you'll figure out how to do it. And I think we all did that as kids. If you really want to do something, you're going to go figure it out. But yeah, I wasn't really familiar enough with how the whole process went. So I like your description of how the instructors were. Like, all the instructors were fairly professional, fairly quiet. And it was one of those things where they expected you to put out. Like, they expect more from you. I've never been. Say it again.
Initiative.
Yeah, initiative.
You had to show initiative. If you didn't, then again, you're kind of looked at like, what's going on? You gonna do what you're supposed to?
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to tell you. So, big boy
That's
rule.
interesting. I love that. I love that process. I've never been a big fan of the coaches that got to get in your face and yell. I understand the reasoning for it, but it's like, that's what it is. They're looking for initiative. People talk a lot about So people talk a lot about the different coaches and their processes, and I know that support for the different college programs out there, the football programs that we talk about, they're very territorial. And I know we're in North Carolina, so I'll probably get my leg hacked off for talking about Nick Saban. But Nick Saban, I quote him a lot in one of in the classes that we teach. So one of the a few years ago, they were showing him on ESPN, and he was talking to his group, to his team, and he talked about the process. And he says, what we do is important, but how we do what we do becomes more and more important. He says, because our goal overall is to have the kind of team that nobody wants to play. And I quote that all the time when we're teaching law enforcement guys or when we've taught military guys, because it's a perfect transition, because the group that any of the ODAs that you guys put out there, you want them to be the kind of team that nobody wants to screw with. And that's confidence you all have in each other as you go out there. It's confidence that I like to have in my partners when I hit the streets, when I was on patrol or when I was on SWAT. And we want that from our sports team, and just kind of a learning process through the years of how they grow up. So I mean, I love that mentality. It's like, do what you're supposed to be doing, and that's kind of a cool way to do it, cool way to look at it. So I like that. I like the mentality of their training. So you get through Q course, you don your Green Beret, and how do y'all get assigned, or who decides where y'all go?
Was that a flip of
The
coin?
Army, yeah, flip of the coin. It's
Yeah.
yeah. So Nick, when we got to the same company in 3rd Special Forces Group, and he was fortunate enough to go to what's known as a Special Forces ODA or an A team. Myself, I wasn't that lucky. I got sent to a B team, and the first thing I did was like, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
Because the purpose of a B team is to support all 5 or 6 company or ODAs in the company. So it felt like punishment, but it was a good learning experience no matter what.
And again, that's just luck of the draw. It's
yeah,
not
it
like
is.
they know who you are. They say, well, we've got a B team slot. I'm going to put this guy here. Don't know him.
Yep.
So it's not a punishment whatsoever. It's just, this is how the cards fell, basically.
The best interest of the Army.
Mhm.
I got you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know that in the Special Forces, there's different designations, right? Like 18 Bravo and Delta and all that stuff. What were you guys, or what are the different designations? What are they, and what were you guys?
So you go ahead, Nick.
I was an 18 Bravo, so I was a weapons sergeant.
Okay.
And kind of what we were in charge of was all the weapons, optics, also ensuring that the TTPs, everything that we're training in the team remain, constant.
And so I'm sorry to interrupt you, but so TTPs for the people listening, the TTPs are the training tactics and procedures.
Mhm.
Okay, cool. Just for explanation so
Yep.
they understand it.
And then also, but all of us did that. So don't get me wrong. But that was just one of the things that we were sort of in charge of, running all the ranges, ensuring that the weapon side and the defense side was covered.
All right.
So I started out as a 18 Echo, Special Forces Communications Sergeant, and it's one of those thankless jobs that nobody needs an Echo until you need an Echo and you need communications and stuff like that. So I eventually progressed into going into Special Forces Intelligence Sergeant, 18 Fox. It's more of a senior position on the ODA, in which you're helping to drive operations through intel collected. So that it was a good position for me. Now, before the 18 Fox gig, I spent all of my rotations to Afghanistan doing 18 Echo, just doing regular team guy stuff. It was a good experience. I only did 2 rotations to Afghanistan from 06 through 08. I know Nick here, he did a lot more.
I did 4
yeah.
from
Okay.
06 to 10.
Okay. So, and I know it was very hot over there. There's a lot of stuff going on. So a couple more questions, though, real quick about the process with Special Forces. So I know that you said you were a weapons sergeant, and I know that. So I guess I want to find out. It's like, so does everybody have to be a sergeant? Is there a rank that you have to have before you're allowed to apply for Special Forces?
That's changed a lot through the years. So back when Nick and I went through the Q course, you had to be at least 25 years old. There was this thing called the 18 X-ray program. That's where you could come in off the street and go through infantry training and then go straight into the what was known as a Special Forces preparation course,
Okay.
and then you go through the Q course. But on the regular conventional side, where I was as a cook, you basically had to, I think at a minimum, you had to be a specialist or a sergeant E5 to join, and you could be no higher than a junior E7, which some guys go through the Q course and they actually, which this is just Pat's personal opinion, didn't do people a lot of favors because you become long in the tooth on the conventional side, and bringing a conventional mentality into an unconventional unit and culture can be detrimental.
I gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. So, and also, so y'all talked about the different designations, the 18 designations. But kind of like what you said, is like although y'all are specialists in one field, you're still expected to pull your weight in all the fields.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So aside from the 18 Bravo and 18 Echo, you had 18 Charlie, which was your engineers. Really, they were just the supply guys, right?
Doing inventory.
Yeah, they just did inventory and supply. No kidding. They also, explosives and everything else, which is why I think a lot of guys wanted to be 18 Charlies until they realized the majority of
got
what
to the
they had
team.
to do, which is supply. And then 18 Delta, which is your medics, and those guys, they have a very intense and grueling, course for sure. I mean, they get through, what is it? Is it 8 months or a year?
I think it's a year. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I
They're all weird.
They get out and they're the best trained medics in the entire military. In fact, many other branches, send their guys to the 18 Delta course because it's that intense and that in depth. And yeah, I mean, those are the guys that are going to fix you. They're the guys that you go to whenever you're sick or hurt or anything else. I mean, it's like having your own PA on your team.
Yeah.
I mean, they're very, very good. You had your 18 Alpha, which is the officer. A 180 Alpha, which is a warrant officer, somebody that used to be an enlisted guy and is now a warrant officer. So it's kind of a step in between. And then the Team Daddy, which would be the 18 Zula. So,
Okay.
And then the 18 Fox as well,
Mhm.
which is what he.
So when you say the team dad, is he just an older guy or higher rank?
He's the E8, and he's got the most team time. He's got the most time in service. He's the highest ranked. He's the guy that knows everything. He's the one that's in charge. Even though you
Gotcha.
have an officer that's going to put his name on all the con ops, that team sergeant's probably been in the group or on a team for
Several years.
yeah,
Several years.
10 years. I mean, hell, there's one of my team sergeants was, let's see, the Ranger Regiment for, I think, 5 or 6 years, and then he was in Special Forces for another 20 years after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a
So
lot
by
of
the time
time.
he got to us, he was, I think he had 16 or 17 years just in Special Forces. So, I mean, he knew it all. He knew everything. He's done everything. So.
Oh, that's great. So I know you talked about the Deltas and their training and the 18 Delta school. I've been lucky enough to know a couple of 18 Deltas and know some medics that came through the military programs, and I've heard the same thing. I heard some older SEAL medics that had gone through the 18 Delta school, and it's kind of cool to hear how they were sending their guys over. And now I know that the different branches are trying to develop their own. The Air Force has their own medical school. The PJs, hey, they're great guys. Navy had corpsmen, and now they're creating their own medical school for the SEALs.
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys look at the different training, the Special Forces school here, and all the Special Forces training that are going on in the other branches? Have you all had any exposure to what the other schools are doing, what the Navy's doing, what the Air Force is doing, the Marine Corps is doing?
Yeah, I have. Matter of fact, I think a really good example was when MARSOC stood up. That's the Marine Special Operations Command. The Marine Special Operations Command, I believe, when they first stood up, one of their main missions was to conduct unconventional warfare, which just so happens to be the primary bread and butter for Green Berets. So when they started, when the Marines started MARSOC, they needed some sort of help, some sort of guidance. And so a lot of retired Special Forces Green Berets were sent down to Camp Lejeune and other locations to stand up the Marine Special Operations Command. So
Wow.
to kind of expand on your question, like seeing these other trains, because anything worth having is worth having one of your own. But if you're going to have something of your own, don't think you're going to be, the cat's ass right out of the gate.
Yeah.
You got, the special forces. We've been around since the 50s, and we've been doing unconventional warfare for that long. Now, granted, we do a lot of other missions, but unconventional warfare it's ingrained to us from day one of the special forces Q course, and you're constantly drilled on it. And I think the one thing that separates Green Berets from all the other components is our ability to plan. Planning is an integral part of everything that we do. And Nick will tell you that as soon as the bullet zips by your head, and that plan goes to shit. But at least you have some sort of basis to go from.
Yeah. So and it seems like, so I guess let me ask you this question first. So unconventional warfare, that's the like you said, the bread and butter of what you guys do. How has the mission changed, or what do you know about how the mission has changed from the beginning of Special Forces, the Green Beret guys, to now? Has there been a big change, or has the mission pretty much stayed the same?
That goes along with, a good example is technology, right? Because all three of us at this table, we grew up in an analog age, and now we're living in a digital age.
Yep.
So, as the mission changes, or as culture changes, our mission for UW, it doesn't change. It's just the means in which we go about doing it may change.
Yeah.
Pretty good. All right, cool. What about weapons? So, what about the weapons change? Did
You want to go
notice
get
a lot-
mine?
Bring them out, man. We got time.
Playtime.
What kind of a change did you all see in the weapons that y'all were using, that y'all were issued, or did y'all get to choose from a certain, I guess, group? Did you notice a big change in what y'all were actually taking overseas?
Not really. I mean, there was some small advancements. Regardless, we've been using a variant of the Stoner AR-15 rifle for, let's see, when it was developed back in the 60s.
I think the biggest change, the biggest advancement's been in the sniper weapon systems.
The sniper weapon systems, really, it's been sniper weapons, optics. That's been a huge advancement because, we went from the PEC-2 lasers that were like this big on the front of your weapon with this giant, I wouldn't say, we were post mag light. So they weren't the big mag lights, but they were still big flashlights.
Yeah.
To now, everything is nice, small, and contained. That's the advancements that I've really seen. When it comes to weapons, though, it's still a bullet in a gun. And we've been using 5.56 and 7.62 for eons, as well as your heavy weapons, your 50 cals and whatnot, and grenade launchers. But really, they're all just a derivative of that same, Armalite rifle.
Yeah.
That's it. So luckily, I think right now the military is trying to change and go into a different direction with a 6.8 and the next generation, weapons and whatnot. So I think after, close to 60, 70 years, they're finally going to say, hey, look, it's time to get outside of the 5.56, something that could shoot a little bit farther and really put somebody down.
That's funny. That was going to be my next question. As king for the day, if you guys could go back and change the weapons or pick a different caliber, what would y'all be taking out?
Oh, that's you. That's all you.
Yeah. So it was kind of interesting. So when I first got to the team, of course we had our M4s or 5.56, and it's a great weapon. Love it. Would never change it. But as you continue to go back to Afghanistan, you're constantly fighting in the mountains. You need that extra range. At one point we were offered a couple different rifles. They were new variants. One was a 5.56, one was a 7.62. And I said, well, hey, look, this 7.62 makes a lot of sense because we can reach out and touch these guys that are shooting at us from a good 500-600 meters away from on top of a mountain. And that made a lot of sense. But to be quite honest, I was pretty happy with what I had. My go-to is always the 50 caliber if we were riding on a GMV and mounted, because the thing would reach out and touch anybody,
anything you want.
Yeah.
Poke through everything. So
wow.
Yeah.
What's the longest shot you've put on a 50 cal, whether operational or in practice?
it's hard to say just because of the ranges that we had. With my 300 Win Mag, so I was a sniper for my team for a little while. I know it was right around 1,542 meters, but again, we were so far away. I don't know if I scared the crap out of him, if I hit him, if I hit his rifle, but all I know is the PKM stopped shooting at us after I made the shot. So he was inside of a building, so I couldn't really see, and I'm not going to track down a mountain to go see.
So on the training side, at 1,500 meters, what does a normal human frame look like? How big is a normal human frame at 1,500 meters to the eye or to the scope?
Close to a mile away. So
Yeah.
So pretty much a spec.
Yeah.
Got to have the right glass.
Yes.
Cool. What kind of glass were y'all running over there?
We had Night Force.
Okay.
So we had Night Force on a 300 Win Mag, so it could reach out.
You could reach out a long ways. That's
Yeah.
good. That's a great weapon. Cool. So all right. So y'all had a lot of cool training. Y'all had a great career out there. So I want to ask you now. We'll be sensitive to whatever y'all need to keep classified or don't keep classified. But is there any cool battles that y'all can tell a war story about, or maybe something that you had experience with? Because I know that there's the community is huge, or well, I take back. The community is not huge. The stories are huge to us that are on the outside, and we love to hear the stories. But you guys push out a lot of people. You push out a high quality group of people, and we hear stories on top of stories every time somebody gets pinned on a medal, or they recap a story on the Discovery Channel. There's always some faction of you guys, some component of you guys are included in that. Are there any cool stories that you can tell, or any cool people that you all got to operate with that y'all can talk about?
I'll say this: I have gotten to work among the superheroes. They're real life superheroes. The people I've gotten to work with have been awesome. As far as the war stories, I've been in my fair share of gunfights. I remember, I will say this: my very first gunfight, it didn't seem real. It was almost out of body experience. Somebody launched an RPG at us, and the whole team just kind of froze, and we were just like, oh. And it took us a while for it to click in that, oh, okay, now this is real. But I'll digress, because Nick here, he's been in the main gun battles that are worth storytelling.
Awesome.
I mean, they're not the main gun battles. There's been quite a lot of them out there.
Yeah,
so.
There has.
I mean, I'll tell one, maybe lead into another. So my teammate Robert Miller, who's a Medal of Honor recipient, we ended up doing it was a basic 5W, which is like, hey, we're gonna go up to this area and just check it out, and that was it. It was a very quick. I mean, literally, like, guys back at command went to sleep because they're like, this is just a run of the mill regular patrol. Well, as we're going up, things are looking a little bit different. We're supposed to be encountering maybe about 15 guys, and we get in a little firefight. We drop some bombs, go in to do some battle damage assessment, some BDA, and then it turns out that we're really we stumbled into a kind of a winter headquarters of the bad guys, and there was 200 plus. And as we're going across, we had our trucks on one side, so we had support by fire. There was a river in between us and the trucks, and then we had to go in. So there's about 13 of us total with Afghans that were with us, but it was 7 ODA guys, and we basically were pretty close, within 10 feet of a very entrenched, dug-in, enemy that was. There was quite a few foreigners that were there. They weren't all just Afghans. So. Long story short, we had a long. I mean, the whole mission was about 24 hours. We were probably under combat or in contact for about 14 to 16 hours.
Wow. And
we ended up losing Staff Sergeant Miller. But if it wouldn't have been for him, we probably would have lost quite a few other guys. So at the end of that, he ended up receiving the Medal of Honor a few years later, which was a huge, massive honor. But, Pat and I went through the Q course. I mean, I was best friends with Robbie. Him and I were on the team together. We're the 2 single guys on the team. We're both Bravos, so.
Nothing could go wrong.
Yeah, nothing could go wrong there. So, but, it was like right after that, and then we went into another firefight, and we ended up in a massive firefight right after that. and 2 more Medal of Honor recipients were awarded from that battle alone. And it was funny because the first one was so intense and so close that during the second one, which, I guess people make it seem like it was a lot more intense, we were sort of laughing at it because we were so desensitized by the other one. And literally, me and my team sergeant were laughing at each other and poking fun and whatnot. And so yeah, that was all within a 4-month time period.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Those are great stories, and I know that you gave us the usable version of it, and I definitely appreciate you going into it. So we talked about a couple of things. Y'all talked about how you talked about your first gun battle, and it's like it's one of those things that when they happen, you revert back to your training. And I love the saying. So people talk about this, that there's a saying out there that you don't rise to the occasion, you fall back to your training. And I know that when the RPG snapped by, it's like it was almost like it was surreal. Like, okay, we're actually doing this now. And it seems like all of the highly trained people that I've had the chance to be around, you just see how the training kicks in, and this is just what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And I love knowing that we're pushing people out there that have received that kind of training. But you used a word that hits home for me because I see that on the field, in the field where I came from the first responder side, and I see that a lot from your all side as well. The word is desensitized. And it's like we were exposed to this so much. Like we see this so much. It's just a part of what we. It's like it's almost a laughable experience. It's like this battle is not that big of a battle. Yesterday's battle was such a huge battle, and that kind of mindset doesn't make sense to the people who haven't actually been in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those are great messages for us to pass out to everybody so they understand it better. And it's a lot like that whole knowledge deprivation thing. I take a lot from how instructors and how coaches and how people push the message out there. I think that's one of those things that people don't want to sit and listen to, because your all's exposure to the battles, our exposure to stuff on the street, it desensitizes us to what's actually going on in life. And it's like our processes are a little bit different. And with that, we've talked a lot about the resiliency mindset and how we recover from those types of things. I know on the law enforcement side, on the first responder side, the programs have come up and the programs have become a bigger deal for actual recovery. It's like dealing with what we've seen, dealing with the trauma. And everybody has their own process. I'm real big on listening to people's processes. And for a lot of us, it's like you said, y'all are close. Y'all hang out with each other. This is part of the team didn't die. Like the team actually stayed together, and that's kind of part of it. And I have seen that a lot of people will have problems with the whole coming back to here or getting back after work, and you're going into the family, you're going into your friend circle, and they don't understand. What have you all found was the best transition when y'all came back from a deployment, or since y'all retired? What has been the best transition that you guys have found? And was there anything special that was I guess afforded to y'all while y'all were in the Army that allowed you to decompress or to talk to somebody?
I don't think we had time to decompress.
When we were going, we didn't have
The
time.
operational tempo is you're either you're at war or you're back home training. Because when we went through OEF 9 back in 2006, 2007, we went for an 8-month rotation, and we got back in, I believe it was March or May or something like that. We had 6 months.
Yeah.
And then we were right back in Afghanistan.
I mean,
and keep
you
in
come
mind,
back, you've got your 1 month of
1 month of leave.
Get all your shots, make sure everything's back, make sure you got this. Then you get a month of leave, and then you come back and you're like, all right,
whatever training you have to do.
You have to do all these things, or you can't go anywhere. And then you go to training, and then you get all your shots again, and you go back over. So there was you're right.
I will say this, when we came back from the OA trip, our healing was nothing healthy. But it was.
Jameson's healthy.
Yeah, it could be.
I mean, I think that the most healthy thing is that, I mean, we used to go and hang out.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we had our bar, Charlie Mike's, which is in Fayetteville. And we would go to Charlie Mike's, and the whole company, the whole group pretty much would go there.
Yeah.
And you'd know guys, you'd see some guys having a hard time. Hey, let's go get a shot, or hey, come here, let's talk. And you knew that everybody had their backs, you know. So
Biggest thing is talking about it.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I didn't hear a lot about the guys or from our guys, from our trainers. Nobody talked about that. Nobody said, "Hey, you guys got to talk about it. Sit down and talk about it." I know we all got together. We had cop parties or cop bars, and we all got together. But I never really heard that whole mental process. Like, this, don't forget to sit down and talk about it, because that actually does help. And I've seen that, and I know from experience. So,
well, just like with desensitizing yourself to combat or to firefights or anything that's out there, you know, with what law enforcement goes through, you have to desensitize yourself to the experiences that you've already had. And that's something that has helped me out considerably, to be able to sit down and talk about these events that were, you know, pretty major. You're very close, and if you can talk about it, then all of a sudden you start to get this off your chest a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't do that, you're going to keep it bottled up, and it's you know, you keep pressure in for too long, eventually it's going to blow up in some way. And it's happened in many different ways for guys. So desensitizing yourself to your own experiences is important. It'll help you get through that. It'll help that process, you know.
I like that. That's great. I mean,
Definitely makes life back here easier too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because life over there is easy.
It really is.
It's super easy. I mean, shooter gets shot at, and you know, you have wake up, go to the gym, go on patrol, come back, go to the gym, clean your weapon, stuff like that. Come back here, you got to worry about bills. You know, all the stressors of life.
Driving the speed limit.
Yeah, and I think exactly. Not throwing grenades at people.
You're not allowed to fish that way anymore.
Yeah, I know, right?
Dang it.
But I think that once you've been shot at, it changes your whole world. Like it doesn't matter how bad things can get at home. We always have this saying, well, at least we're not getting shot at.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We always say that. Our wives hear it all the time, and actually, they probably, frankly, are tired of hearing it.
They probably are, yeah. Like, why aren't you stressed out about this? Well, not getting shot at.
Yeah.
Do you guys find that as team guys, you naturally try to form a team with your group? And I know it's like you don't get to pick all the time. It's like your kids go to school, and their friends from school become part of your social group, and you don't get to choose who they are. Do you guys find that y'all naturally start creating teams out here, creating teams amongst the public?
Absolutely.
We do. I mean, it's making friends with people who don't have shared life experiences. It is different. But once you find that connective tissue, then that's the biggest thing, is you have to find something that binds you, and not just being elitist.
What's one of the go-to moves that you guys use for creating teams outside, creating that team concept among the general public?
I would go back to the training that we got in the Q course,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of that is to sit down with somebody that you know nothing about, completely different culture, and to figure out what that baseline is. You know, I mean, for instance, Afghanistan. We were up in the mountains of Afghanistan, and we went to places that they've never seen, Americans before. And you have to figure out, all right, where are we at? Okay, let's start off with some tea. Let's start talking. And then all of a sudden you become friends, and then all of a sudden you get that camaraderie. It's very similar. I mean, outside.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think probably for our kind of group, it's probably easier to make friends because you're able to talk to whoever.
Yeah.
There's the elitism really isn't. We're trained to get past that. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm in sales and marketing, so I have to talk to people.
Yeah, well, talking to people, I think communication is what pretty much solves all the problems that we run into. I mean, communications out in the field, communications back home. I mean, communications can solve all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to ask you one of the off-the-wall questions. I kind of prepped y'all for this one, but you guys did a lot. A lot of mountain biking, a lot of sports. A lot of time out in the field. So if they decide to have walk-up songs in Special Forces, what's your walk-up song, Pat?
Oh, man. I think it's right now, just because I listen to a lot of metal, something from Five Finger Death Punch. A little off today.
A little off today.
Yeah, a little off today.
Huh.
Especially the last few lines of the song.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
You heard
What
this
about
one?
Nick? Yeah, I did. I have
Okay.
heard that.
The last line of the song is just spot on for me.
I like that, man.
Let's see, mine would probably be something from Clutch, Electric Worry, or Drink to the Dead, or Pure Rock Fury, or any of those.
That's awesome.
What about Dragon Force?
Dragon Force, that now, I mean, it depends on what we're walking up to.
Yeah, true.
Wow.
Yeah, it depends on the mood.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like that. That y'all have a lot of people struggle with that. I'll throw it out to them and they catch them off guard. And yeah, I don't know what my walk-up song would be. So you guys had a lot of really cool training along the way. You had a lot of cool. I mean, without being too ugly about it, you had a lot of cool nerd training. And
I've had all the nerd training.
yeah,
He
you
is
had a
the
lot of
nerd.
cool nerd training. You had a lot of cool weapons training. And it seems that you have been able to harness all the training and kind of utilize it and push it into your next life. Man, tell me a little bit about the business. Tell me a little bit about how you've utilized the business, or how you've utilized your training for what you're doing now.
Okay. So I took another big jump. So first one was from Cook to Special Forces, and then this one was into cybersecurity. So that's what I do now. Is I do training and education for a whole gambit of customers. So I run a teen cyber camp here in Moore County, basically teaching kids about cybersecurity, because a lot of kids, they grew up with technology, unlike you and I. We grew up analog and had to learn all this stuff, and still learning it on a daily basis. What the assumption is that teenagers, younger kids, younger adults, they know this stuff. Well, actually, they don't, because it just works. They didn't know like the actual buildup of the technology. So a lot of what I teach is how to keep yourself safe, because cybersecurity is, it's a constant threat for everybody. So self-trained hacker, that's what I primarily train on, because I like to be able to figure out how to get into things. So I just started doing things on Instagram, doing podcasts, stuff like that, doing
What's your-
webinars.
What are your handles on Instagram? And what do you do?
Green Hat Solutions.
Okay.
If you look up Green Hat Solutions, you'll find me.
Okay.
So I put out information I'll be increasing my presence online a little bit more. That's been a challenge in itself, because I'm typically a private person.
Right.
But yeah, I'm making that transition, so it's fun. It's a constant challenge. I love teaching people, teaching law enforcement. I've taught some of the most elite units in the military. So it depends on the customer. I can teach a whole gambit of things related to cybersecurity.
So when you're training, you'll tailor the training to
Yep.
what's actually needed.
Yes.
So if you're going to teach a group of kids, what's the primary thing you're going to teach teenagers to be worried about when you're talking about protecting yourself online?
Dumb habits. It's really dumb habits. Matter of fact, Nick just went overseas not too long ago, and he's like, "Hey, what's something I can do?" I'm like, "You know what? Just erase any trace that you've been connected to your home Wi-Fi network." And he's like, "Oh, I didn't know that."
Yeah,
Because there are ways to get that information. I can get your home Wi-Fi password from your phone when you're away from home, just based on what your phone is putting out.
And you just pull that off of my phone just being by me.
Yes.
Yeah. Huh. That's interesting. So you're teaching people how to protect yourself from that.
From that, yes. I learn all the bad stuff, and I teach people how to defend themselves.
Cool. And then do you teach people like let's just say we're out somewhere, we're out of the mall or something. Can you pull information off my phone
Oh yeah,
without me knowing about it?
easily.
Right. And you're teaching people how to protect themselves from that. So the bad guys are out there doing that all the time.
Correct.
So what's the thing that I can do to protect myself from all these potential spam calls? Is there anything that I can do?
Ooh, spam calls.
Talk to 'em. That's what I do.
I've done that. I enjoy those conversations.
Yeah.
Well, spam calls. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things to do, because I think that kind of underscores the overarching theme of privacy. Right, privacy is constantly being eroded with cyber now. So as far as like any sort of subscription services, you think about, when's the last time you bought a car?
Gosh, it's 2011.
Or 2011. Well, you go to buy any type of service or anything like that, and soon after you get an email for some sort of survey, right?
Yeah.
And that survey is never from the company you bought this service from. It's from a third party
Right.
who sells your information to other third parties.
Huh.
And that's how it's really how I explain how your information is sold online.
Okay.
even with the tech giants, like understanding how Google tracks you and everything that you type in. I could teach people how to not get tracked by Google. Now it takes work because you have a scale, you have convenience on one hand, security on the other,
Right.
and everything about technology is making everything more convenient. So if you think about it, if it's making things more convenient in your life, it's going to degrade your security in some way, shape, or form.
I got you.
So it's really just illuminating that what's actually happening.
You're showing people what the options are and giving them different effort levels.
Yep.
And they can pick which effort
You
level
choose,
they go
yes.
to.
If you want to wear a tinfoil hat and live in a cave, then I could show you how.
Sweet. I might take that up. So I was looking for different levels of who we're protecting and all that. So the soccer moms out there, or the dads out there, the people who have their kids on, like there's apps like Life 360 and those types of things. What do you think about those types of apps, and how do you teach parents to protect their kids or how to look after their kids?
So things like Life 360, they're great. They are a service. However, they're benefiting from your information. They're going to be tracking you. So what happens if Life 360 gets compromised?
Right.
They have all the information. So what I like to do is I like to teach people how to make your own solution. If you want a Ring doorbell system, you can build it yourself. It's really not that hard, and you can do it for less than $100.
Wow. And you have that available to you. So okay, so man, I live in Texas, and I can't come up to North Carolina for a class that you're putting on teaching how to build a Ring doorbell system.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have an online component where I can take an online class?
I
with
will
you?
be teaching. I will be doing webinars. So I had teamed up with another company just to kind of increase a following. But the way things are going right now with my company, I'll be able to have more time to start doing webinars and stuff like that. And then based off of traffic and demand signal, then I'll be able to travel and do in-person training as well.
That's pretty cool. So a tech question that I've always wondered about, and I don't know if this is too brand specific and we need to stay away from that, but Mac versus PC, why do certain groups, like I see a lot of schools are going to go to the Macs, but businesses will go to PCs. Is there a big reasoning behind that?
So I like to here's something I like to say about Windows. Computers are a lot like air conditioning. They're both worthless once you open up Windows, right?
I like
Just
that.
nerd joke. But so it's Windows was built for the masses. You can do a lot of tinkering, and Apple has their model a lot based around security more than anything. Windows is just, I don't know, not a fan. I work on Windows every day, but I also work on Mac every day, and I also work on Linux every day. It's a little bit maddening, but that's what I do.
And do you keep separate machines running each of those programs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
So as far as like a lot of it's based on money because Apple they have great hardware, they really do. And it's really based on customer. Now the enterprise, everyone using Microsoft, Microsoft was just first to the punch, and they have cheaper solutions.
Yeah. So, and I guess in these classes, are you going to be providing classes out there that will teach me, like, if I decide I want to be a Linux guy, will you teach me how to build my own machine?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Easy.
Yeah, those are kind of like, I'm not nerd enough to understand. I just know that those things exist and that they're different. I'm not nerd enough to know how to use them, but man, I'd love to learn more about that. So I'll keep following you. I do follow you on Instagram. But yeah, I'll keep following all your updates and see how things go because I'm really interested in the training. My kids are in college, so I kind of learned as we went, as they've as tech has progressed, I've learned a little bit more, and also from the job I've learned a little bit more. But I'm interested in just the Johnny Public guy, learning what there is out there.
And the good thing is, like, former training as a Green Beret, it's one of our jobs is to teach.
Yeah.
So it's ingrained in every Green Beret that's ever done that headgear is we're all teachers.
That's big.
And having that experience working with the knuckle draggers, I know how to break things down to a knuckle dragger level, which has always helped.
Yeah, how you deliver the message is so important.
Yeah.
So as a weapons sergeant, there was a lot of training as well. And you said you're vice president of what? Tell me again, vice president of?
True Velocity Ammunition.
Okay, so what's your specialty over there?
Vice President of Marketing. So I do all the marketing and or I assist with all the marketing with my boss, and we also do the sales. So basically, what True Velocity is we're a technology company that has entered into the small munitions space. So what our founders decided to do is, why can't we make a lighter, better bullet? Not the bullet, not the projectile, the entire casing. So the first thing that they said was, all right, well, I think we can make the actual cartridge and make it work, but why don't we look at manufacturing? Because all of this stuff has never been changed. I mean, you got to think, for 175 plus years, we've been doing the exact same thing with taking a brass ingot, heating it up, stamping it, molding it into a cartridge, and then, doing loading the cartridge that way. So what these guys did is, the founders, Chris and Kevin, they basically made the manufacturing footprint 80% smaller than what regular ammunition would be. They made it to where it's scalable as well. It's also clean, so all you need is the raw materials, powder, primer, projectile, and clean water and air, and you can produce 25 million rounds in about a 2,500 square foot area, which, historically, when it comes to brass, you have to have multiple large machines that are hot, and, there's leach pits, and there's chemicals, and it's just a very, very dirty job. So they started down that road. How do we make the manufacturing better? How do we turn this in? How do we push the ammunition space and market and industry into the 22nd century? And that's what they've done. I mean, when you walk into our facility, it's like you're walking into, I always sort of say it's like walking into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, because you're like, it doesn't have the Oompa Loompas, but it's amazing. You're like, wait, this is it? I'm like, yeah, that's producing 25 million rounds annually. And then there's a 50 cal line, and there's this, and there's that. Everything is 100% quality controlled. So every single bullet. So no longer do you really need to worry about a lot, one lot out of a massive amount of ammunition. You don't have
And so a quick description of why we look at lot numbers. If you don't mind covering that, just kind of real at a glance type of thing. I know that when we pull a box of ammo, we're looking at the same lot numbers.
So like a box of ammo will have a lot number. That means that it was created during this time frame with this material, XYZ basically is what it comes down to. So, and those materials can change, just like with brass, the way that it's heated and stretched and everything else. You're going to have anomalies in there. You're going to have inconsistencies. The powders, all of that stuff is going to be different.
And that's important to us as the people who are actually using the ammo, because that will impact where your bullet impacts.
Absolutely.
And so it's important for you guys, especially on a long rifle guy or on a scope guy, that little bit of a micro adjustment in what that lot was doing during that manufacturing, that's different. So, and it was just a quick a quick cover, so the people that don't actually understand what the lots mean, I want them to have an understanding of when you're switching from lots to actually individual bullets.
So basically, with what we can do now, we're at the constraints of the powder, primer, projectile, but our manufacturing can actually, I mean, literally every single bullet that goes through is 100% inspected, from total indicated readout, which is your entire bullet, all geometry within that, the entire thing, to include your concentricity. So if it's not perfect, then it gets kicked. It's basically making ammunition in a digital fashion. Oh. Everything is digitally, precise.
That's
and
cool.
I'll put it this way: brass for concentricity, can go to about 2 decimal points. So 0.01, 0.02. 0.02 is pretty good for brass. Usually it's about 0.04, 0.06, depending. We do 0.0004 at the very highest.
Wow.
So what that does is it makes every single bullet the exact same. I mean, our our machines will actually look at the projectile, for instance, and we've gone through and been like, hey, all of these projectiles are getting kicked because they don't reach our specs. So that's just the beginning. Those are like when we started with legacy designed ammunition. So the way that you look at ammunition right now, if you pull up a 5.56 or 7.62 or 308 or anything like that, that's a legacy design. What we've started with the next generation squad weapon is a 6.8 in a bullnose configuration, and because we don't have to apply the same rules as brass. So with brass, your outer dimensions dictate what the inner dimensions are going to look like, because as it's stretched, everything is always the same, because it's just that's all you can do with brass. We don't have to do that. So we can change the inner dimensions, keep the outer dimensions the same, change the inner dimensions to where we can have it, a different geometry, so it burns powder better, or there's less case capacity on the inside. So if you have a subsonic round, which is sub-supersonic, you're not going to have any powder shift, which on a subsonic, if you do extreme angles up or down, that powder shift will basically affect the way that your bullet is fired, or if it fires at all, depending on what round it is. So, everybody wants to focus just on the ammunition itself, and I'm like, look, that's the tip of the iceberg. What we can do with the rest of the bullet or the cartridge itself is immeasurable. I mean, it is. We can literally we don't have to abide by the same laws as brass. And it's incredible to be with. I've been there for about 5 years, and you can really see. First of all, you're saving 30% of your ammunition weight, which is massive when it comes to military or anybody else.
Yeah.
And you got to think about say for instance, a certain gunship helicopter, has 2 miniguns, which has 2 3,000 round magazines. If you just switch out our ammunition instead of brass, you're going to save 30% of that weight, which is 150 to 200 pounds.
That's fuel.
That's fuel. That's another guy.
Time on station. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's more station time. That's you start to change what you can do operationally and tactically. So
yeah, that's funny. That's exactly what I was going to say. Is like the impact is the impact you have on the actual life of who's carrying that weapon or that round is very important to a helicopter carrying that many rounds. There's a lot of fuel that's not being burned, and we can sustain a little bit longer, and then we can go a little bit further, and that's kind of cool. How does your all's round impact the life of a bullet, or I'm sorry, the life of a weapon?
So I've actually got a video I can send you,
Yeah.
but it's so we use a composite, so it's a polymer base, but we call it composite because there's multiple other things that are within it that strengthen it and everything else. So this composite is an insulator of heat. So with brass, you've got a conductor of heat. You shoot a couple rounds, your chamber is going to be hot. Ours insulates the chamber. The gas, every bit of gas goes down the barrel. So yes, there still is heat. Yes, it still is conducting heat, but it's being driven down the barrel like it should be. So one of our favorite things to do is to shoot a belt of 7.62 or something like that. I'll say, hey, put your finger in the chamber. And anybody that's ever shot a machine gun's like, no, I'm never going to do that. And so we'll do it. We'll stick our pinky in the chamber, and it doesn't burn us.
That is huge.
Like this. Everybody's gotten burned by brass if you've ever shot a gun. At some point, especially if you're in the military, everybody's gotten burned by brass.
Oh, yeah.
You can literally shoot this all day and pick it up and put it on your cheek.
And for those of you all who have not been on the range with new shooters, the brass dance is probably the most dangerous thing you'll ever be around.
Oh yeah, you can be in the middle of a firefight, you get a piece of brass, and all of a sudden your mind's not on that firefight. It's getting the hot piece of brass out of your shirt. So that's just part of it. I mean, it's pretty incredible. One of the things that we're working on right now, like I said, is the next generation squad weapon, which is replacing the 5.56 weapon with the 6.8. So the solution that we have is basically a round that weighs the same as a 5.56 piece of brass. It's the same size as a 7.62 or a 308, but it has the power and energy of a 300 Win Mag. So if you have a 7.62, you can literally just switch out the barrel and start shooting the 6.8. That's chambered specifically to our round.
That's awesome.
And you're increasing your range and your power significantly. And not to mention you're lightening your load again.
Mm-hmm.
So, me being a 220-pound guy, even when I was in my fittest on the team, it would have been nice to trim down 10, 15 pounds around my kit.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Shoot, move, communicate.
Yeah, so I'm definitely interested in checking out the ammo. So I know that right now in the world there's a big shortage, or there's always a competition to find ammo. What's the availability of your old stuff?
We're just now starting to become much more available. We do have a commercial line, and we started off with just a 7.62 legacy design that is commercially available through our website and a few other stores. We're getting ready to expand that to a couple other SKUs and to a few other calibers as well. So
yeah, that's cool. So if I build a brand new, if I build a brand new 7.62, I build a brand new 308, I'm going to be able to run your ammo through my weapon, and that weapon, I'm not going to have to change the barrel out on that thing.
No, not at all. It's the same thing, and there's no difference.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. I'd love to get some of your old stuff down to the range, and maybe we could do a T&E on it down at our range someday.
Yeah, sure.
That'd be cool. So all right, so I'm going to ask you a couple of off the wall questions, and I know I've been going to Pat first. I'm going to come to you first on this one. So when they put the movie out, the third group movie out, who plays Pat?
Who plays Pat?
Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves. Yeah.
Keanu Reeves.
He's got the hair.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good
Although
one.
he is getting a little bit old. He's about as old as you, right?
You got more gray than I do.
Probably doesn't move quite as cool, huh? Who plays Nick?
Ooh, who plays Nick?
What, Chris Pratt?
There you go.
Oh, which version? Which version of him? Because he got pretty chunky. You saw the beach pictures where he got real chunky. Is it the beach version or
I
the
think Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Thank
what
you.
I was
Star Lord.
Oh, yeah.
So, man, I've held you all for quite a while, but y'all gave me so much information. I know that the viewers and the listeners have really appreciate it. Guys starting out down the pipeline, or people starting out down the pipeline, or kids just in general, what's the first bit of information or the biggest piece of information that you wish somebody had given you back then?
I think to me, there's two things. As boring as some training can be, remember your training.
Yeah.
And literally, I've had that multiple firefights, everything else, and the first thing that goes through, remember your training. There's a reason why they dumb it down and they make you go through it over and over and over again. The next thing is don't quit. I think we've said that multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
People said that to us before we went through the Q course, and just don't quit.
Yeah.
And that's a lot harder than, and I think it's a smaller amount of people that have that ability to just not quit.
Yeah. I'd say focus on the basics. Everybody's so hyper focused on advanced stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All the advanced stuff is doing the basics really well. That's all it is.
I like it. Man, those are great. That's a great way to close it out. I'll give you all anything else y'all want to throw out there? Anything else you want to talk about before we close it?
No, this was a good time. Thanks for
Man,
having us.
I really appreciate your all's time. I
appreciate
love the way the conversations go. People want to talk about war stories, and people want to talk about the coolest. But man, it's like life in general. Kind of all the paths intersect, and I can't thank you all enough. I can't thank you to the guys who hooked this all up together. This has been really cool. I hope that there's something that I can do for you guys in the same way in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Look forward to it.
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right. Thank you.